touched on a lot of very hot button topics there. I think some of them are particularly meaningful to Ira and myself. I want to take you back to just one in no order of priority, but you talked about China and the influence, I guess the diverging influences we have as two foreign nations to one another. How do you feel about the China treaty that was recently signed, for starters?
Well, let me tell you. Let's make it more broad. Why, first of all, are we even concerned about the internal affairs of any foreign nation? We have played world policeman for 50 years, and we are universally hated. Something far more important to me is terrorism. And we're trying to fight terrorism while we are simultaneously interfering in the foreign affairs of the country, which is fostering the terrorism. Well, oh, please get real. People do not hate us for no reason. If we do not interfere, then what reason would they have to come and prevent us from interfering? We need to look at what's happening here at home. We are $18 trillion in debt. And we're considering giving money and lending money. In the real world, if your bank account is empty and a friend comes to you and says, loan me $20, how do you do it? Well, you can't. You say, I'm sorry, I don't have it. But our government, even though it does not have it, says, yeah, sure, we'll print some more money. When it does that, who is it stealing from? From you, from every American worker. Every dollar that you have earned is devalued by the printing of more money. Well, that's theft. It really is. The government is stealing from the American people in order to continue to help other people out. Well, that makes no sense. None whatsoever. If you have no money, I'm sorry, that was a fly on my if you have no money, you can't spend it. That's the real world. And we all know that. But the government is living in a fantasy world, a world of wishes and dreams and desires that really can't be fulfilled. And they still fulfill them in that fantasy world by creating something that does not exist. That's insane, and we can no longer do that. I'm very sorry. So, one of the other things I'm going to do is we're not going to spend money we don't have. And that means we're going to have to spend more time at home and less time worrying about what's happening abroad, for at least for a while. And let the affairs of other countries sort themselves out. We're not policemen. They didn't ask us to police the world. We police the world in order to spread democracy. Well, let's spread some democracy here at home. Let's take care of the American people. Government started out as a service organization. It serves the people. It's turned into an organization of power. In the Declaration of Independence, which was the founding document of this country, it states that governments are created to serve people. When they no longer do so, the people have the right to alter it or even abolish it. Now, if I stood on a street corner with a megaphone and said, we have the right to abolish our government, I would be arrested as a traitor. You know this for a fact. And yet all I'm doing is quoting from the Declaration of Independence. So we have gone so far from the founding fathers and founding mothers' concept of what government should be, that it is no longer recognizable. It is reversed. What was the principle of truth is now treason. Well, don't you see the insanity in that? The Department of Homeland Security and the NSA say, we want you to open up your most private life to us so that we can analyze it, so that we can assure you that you are not the enemy we are protecting you from. That's really what's happening. Well, can't you see the insanity? It is insane, and we have to bring sanity back. We have to bring reality back. We can no longer live in a dream world, in a world of fantasy, because that doesn't work in real life. People who live in a fantasy in real life eventually end up at the bottom of the heap in tragedy and disrepair. And that is what's happening to America, and I don't like that. You know, I'm 70 years old, and I lived through the 50s when we had Dwight Eisenhower, who was not a particularly great president, I'm sorry, but he was certainly the last president who was trying to serve the people. He didn't even want to be president. He had just come back from a war where he had control over nuclear bombs and battleships. Do you think he had more power sitting behind that desk? No, he didn't want it. They pushed him into it, and he took that role, and he did the best that he could. Well, that was a great time for America, a time of hopes and dreams, and everything was possible. Well, tell me what's possible now. We are constrained. We are spied upon. New business ventures are disenfranchised by the paperwork and monumental laws. There are so many laws that have been passed by Congress since the founding of this country that it would take 600 years for the average person to reading 24 hours a day. That's insane. How can you obey and adhere to laws that it takes you 600 years to read? And we only live 70, 80, or 90. It's bizarre.
Well, okay, so you've answered a question, but you didn't answer a question. So I wanted to ask you, because with regard to China, which you brought it up saying, why are we concerned? Because frankly, I'd encourage you, Ari and I put up, we give opinion pieces, and the latest one we put up went up last night, called Leave China Alone. Because instead of worrying about China spying, we should be more worried about protecting our infrastructure so that China doesn't have as easy of a time to spy. That's our opinion. And
go ahead.
And so with that in mind, here's the question. We agree with you that why are we meddling in China, charging their military officers doing what they've been ordered to do with crimes in the U.S., which to us is absurd. But how are you going to, as president or the Cyber Party or whatever else, the problem is, how are you going to get industry to better protect itself? Because that's where the big cybersecurity problems come from. The infrastructure is controlled by private industry. Everybody wants voluntary. Because knowing your background, because we've done our research, I am assuming you don't want the government to dictate to people how they should do things in their businesses and stuff. However, self-regulation has not worked with regard to companies, especially critical infrastructure companies, protecting themselves, which is why we're resorting to telling China, don't hack us. How are you going to, what policies are you going to create as president or the Cyber Party promote so that we don't have a bunch of sitting ducks, either as a government or as private companies?
Okay. First and foremost, China is at war with us, whether we like it or not. They have not declared it, but they are at war. Now, we are naive in asking China not to attack us. I mean, in World War II, if Britain had simply called, Churchill had called Hitler and said, oh, I have an idea, why don't you not attack us? And Hitler goes, okay, that's fine. Do you think that would have worked? That's the same insanity here. You can't just ask China not to attack us when their goal is world domination. And we are in their way. So to sit there and negotiate as if in good faith, China's going to go, oh, okay, you don't want us to do anything to you. Okay, that's fine. We'll sign a treaty saying we're not going to do that. Do you see the insanity? Please. They have declared war. And they are preparing for the next step, which is not just gathering information and spying, but using that information to bring us down. Now, the government, you say the private industry is the problem, and it is a problem, but the government is the first problem. I mean, we have military weapons that are controlled by computers, all of them, certainly all of the important ones, and they were designed back in the 1980s, and they're just now reaching light. I worked on a program when I was at Lockheed in 1985, 86, and 87 on the new F-22 fighter plane that's just been announced. That's all computer controlled. When it was designed, we didn't even know what the word hacking meant. There was no such thing. So those issues were a non-issue. We just wanted to make sure that the computer could control a plane going at doing 20 Gs in a turn. And we did that very well. But you see the risk that we have created by that. It has been proven. Wired magazine a month and a half ago did a story on the Jeep automobile where two hackers got into the automobile through the internet and drove it off the road while the driver was frantically trying to regain control. Well, the driver had no control because the hackers had control of the control system computer. The same thing in all of our fighter planes, and all of our bombers, and all of our ships, and all of our missiles even. So you think it's just industry? No, it is the government. Because what would happen if those weapons were turned against us? What happens when China goes into the Tennessee Valley Authority and shuts down the electricity to the entire East Coast, which is a cooperative effort with the government? We have to fix the government. We have to fix the people who control the military hardware, and much of the really critical infrastructure. And we as a government are far less astute than industry.